Everybody knows in a general way that the finest place in the world is, or last was, the Deutsch borough of Wonder what time it is. Yet as it lies some distance from any main roads, being in a somewhat out of the way situation, there are perhaps very few of my readers who have ever paid it a visit. For the benefit of those who have not, therefore, it will be only proper that I should enter into some account of it. And this indeed is the more necessary, as well, with the hope of enlisting some public sympathy in behalf of the inhabitants. I design here to give a history of the calamitous events which have so lately occurred within its limits. No one who knows me will doubt that the duty thus self-imposed will be executed to the best of my ability, and with all that rigid impartiality, all that cautious examination into facts, and diligent collation of authorities, which should ever distinguish him who aspires to the title of the historian. By the united aid of medals, manuscripts, and inscriptions, I have been able to say positively that the borough of Wonder what time it is has existed from its origin in precisely the same condition from which at present preserves. Of the date of this origin, however, I grieve that I can only speak with that species of definiteness which mathematicians are at times forced to put up with in certain algebraic formulae. The date I may thus say, in regard to the remoteness of its antiquity, cannot be less than assignable quantity whatsoever. Touching the derivation of the name, wonder what time it is, I confess myself with sorrow and equally at fault. Among a multitude of opinions upon this delicate point, some acute, some learned, some sufficiently the reverse, I am able to select nothing which ought to be considered satisfactory. Perhaps the idea of Grogswig, nearly coincident with that of Cruda Plenty, is to be cautiously preferred. It runs, wonder what time it is, wonder leg donder what time it is. Quasi und Blitzen. Blitzes absol pro Blitzen. This derivation, to say the truth, is still countenanced by some traces of the electric fluid evident on the summit of the steeples of the house of the town council. I did not choose, however, to commit myself on a theme of such importance. I must refer to the reader desirous of information to the Horet Unculae de Rebus Protes Protiveritas of Dunderbuts. See also Blunderbutzer de Derivationibus, pages 27 to 5010, folio, Gothic edit, red and black character, catchword and number cipher wherein consult. Also marginal notes and autograph Stuff and Puff, with the sub-commentaries of Grunt and Guzzle. Notwithstanding the obscurity with which envelops the date of the foundation of wonder what time it is, and the derivation of its name, there can be no doubt, as I've said before, that it has always existed as we find it in this epic. The oldest man in the borough can remember not the slightest difference in appearance of any portion of it, and indeed, very suggestion of such a possibility is considered insult. The site of the village is a very perfectly circular valley, about a quarter of a mile in circumference, and entirely surrounded by gentle hills, over whose summit the people have never yet ventured to pass. For this they assign the very good reason that they do not believe there's anything at all on the other side. Around the skirts of the valley, which is quite level and paved with flat tiles, extends a continuous row of 60 little houses. These, having their backs on the hill, must look, of course, to the center of the plain, which is just 60 yards from the front door of each dwelling. Each house has a small garden before it, with a circular path of sundial and 24 cabbages. The buildings themselves are precisely so alike that one can in no manner be distinguished one from the other. Owing to the vast antiquity, the style of the architecture is somewhat odd, but it is not for that reason that it is less strikingly picturesque. They are fashioned of hard-burned little bricks, red and black ends, so that the walls look like chessboard upon a great scale. The gables are turned to the front, and there are cornices as big as the rest of the house over the eaves and over the main doors. The windows are narrow and deep, with very tiny panes in the great steel sash. On the roof is a vast quantity of tiles with very long curly ears. The woodwork throughout is of a dark hue, and there is much carving about it. With but a trifling variety of pattern for time out of mind, the carvers of wonder what time it is have never been able to carve more than two objects, a timepiece and a cabbage. But these do not, they do exceedingly well and intersperse them with singular ingenuity wherever they find room for the chisel. Dwellings are as much alike as inside as out, and the furniture is all upon one plan. The floors are all of square tiles. The chairs and tables in black-looking wood with thin crooked legs and puppy feet. The mantelpieces are wide and high and have not only timepieces and cabbages sculptured over the front, but a real timepiece which makes a prodigious ticking on top of the middle, with a flower pot containing a cabbage standing out on each extremity by way of outrider. Between each cabbage and the timepiece, again, is a little Chinaman having a large stomach with a great round hole in it, through which is seen the dial plate of the watch. The fireplaces are large and deep, with fierce, crooked-looking fire dogs. There is constantly a rousing fire and a huge pot over it, full of sauerkraut and pork, to which the good woman of the house is always busy in attending. She's a little fat old lady, with blue eyes and a red face, and wears a huge cap like a sugar loaf, ornamented with purple and yellow ribbons. Her dress is of orange-colored linsey-woolsey, but made very full behind and very short in waist, and very deep, indeed very short in other respects, not reaching below the middle of her leg. This is somewhat thick, and also so are her ankles, but she has a fine pair of green stockings to cover them. Her shoes of pink leather are fastened each with a bunch of little yellow ribbons puckered in the shape of a cabbage. In her left hand she has a little heavy Dutch watch, and in her right she wields a ladle for the sauerkraut and pork. By her side stands a fat tabby cat with a gilt toy repeater tied to his tail, which, quote-unquote, the boys have there fastened by way of a quiz. The boys themselves are, all three of them, in the garden attending the pig. They are each 2 feet in height. They have 3-cornered cocked hats, purple waistcoats reaching down to their thighs, buckskin knee breeches, red woolen stockings, heavy shoes with big silver buckles, and long sirtop coats with large buttons of mother of pearl. Each two has a pipe in his mouth and a little dumpy watch in his right hand. He takes a puff and a look and a look and a puff. The pig, which is corpulent and lazy, is now occupied in picking up the stray leaves that fall from the cabbages, and now in kicking him behind at the gilt repeater, which the urchins have also tied to his tail in order to make him look as handsome as the cat. Right at the front door, in a high-backed leather-bottomed armchair, with crooked legs and puppy feet like tables, is seated the old man of the house himself. He is exceedingly puffy like little old gentleman, with big circular eyes and a huge double chin. His dress resembles that of the boys, and I need say nothing further about it. All difference is that his pipe is somewhat bigger than theirs, and he can make a greater smoke. Like them, he has a watch, but he carries his watch in his pocket. To say the truth, he has something more important than a watch to attend to, and what that is, I shall presently explain. He sits with his right leg upon his left knee, wears a great countenance, and always keeps one of his eyes at least resolutely bent upon a certain remarkable object in the center of the plain. This object is situated in the steeple of the house of the town council. The town council are very little, round, oily, intelligent men, with big saucer eyes and fat double chins, and have their coats very much longer, and their shoe buckles much bigger than the ordinary inhabitants of wonder what time it is. Since my sojourn in the borough, they have had several special meetings and have adopted these 3 important resolutions. That it is wrong to alter the good old course of things. That there is nothing tolerable out of wonder what time it is, and that we shall stick by our clocks and our cabbages. Above the session room of this council was the steeple, and the steeple is the Belfry, where it exists and has existed time out of mind, the pride and wonder of the village, the great clock of the borough of wonder what time it is. And this, the object to which the eyes of the old gentlemen are turned, who sit in the leather-bottomed armchairs. The great clock has several faces, and one in each of the 7 sides of the steeple, so that it can be readily seen from all quarters. Its faces are large and white, and its hands heavy and black. There is a belfry man whose sole duty is to attend to it, but this duty is most perfect of sinecures, for the clock of wonder what time it is was never yet known to have such a thing, anything the matter with it. Until lately, the bare supposition of such a thing was considered heretical. From the remotest period of antiquity to the time to which the archives have reference, the hours have been regularly struck by the big bell. And indeed, the case was just the same with all the other clocks and watches in the borough. Never was such a place for keeping the true time. When the large clapper thought proper to say 12 o'clock, all its obedient followers opened their throats simultaneously and responded in a very, like a very echo